I want to read to you a verse that is actually found 2 times in the Bible. It's the exact same words both times. You can find here in 1 Chronicles and then also in Psalms. And it's a very interesting thing. It says, He is the Lord our God. His what? Judgments are in all the earth. Now, I tell you what I find interesting is that today, people don't want to talk about the judgment of God.
Right.
It's almost as if we have created a God in our own image. It's God who is kind of like a real Santa Claus or something. He doesn't seem to ever get mad about anything. He doesn't seem to ever express any kind of judgment. He's just always wanting to love you and bless you and et cetera, et cetera. But God has revealed himself in his word clearly as a just God. A God who is, behold the goodness and the severity of our God, the scripture talks about it. Now, the reason why I think that's interesting is because this whole phrase about judgment in all the earth is found in other places. And I just want you to consider what's been going on in the last few months.
Cemented millions of people inside their home. Look at the size of this thing as seen from space. Records fell.
Biggest snowfall in recorded history. 100 million people will be impacted by the storm. That's 1/3 the population of the United States.
Sprays of freezing water from Lake Erie shrouded Atlanta near Cleveland, Ohio.
Unusually cold weather continues to pound the eastern half of the United States, and it is very serious. It's pushing temperatures well below normal.
That was in Chicago just a few
Remains
months
in the
ago.
grip of the big freeze tonight, and there is little sign of it easing. Heavy snow brought large parts of the UK to a standstill again today, with airports closed and motorways shut. And tonight, ice is the big worry as temperatures plunge to as low as -7 or 8.
The catastrophic earthquake in Chile was so powerful, it knocked the Earth off of its axis and shortened the length of the day.
Tonight there is another measure of how powerful this earthquake was. Listen to this. It moved so much mass on the planet planet that government scientists estimated moved the Earth off its axis by about 3 inches, and as a result shortened the day by a few millionths of a second. The quake raised the ground level of one island in Chile by 6 feet, and it most certainly turned the lives of millions, as we've seen, upside down.
Australia is experiencing one of the worst floods in the past 70 years. The BBC says the flooding has reached biblical proportions.
Evacuations are underway in far north Queensland as locals and tourists flee the path of monster cyclone Yasi. Much of the Cairns CBD is expected to go underwater when the biggest cyclone in the state's history crosses the coast early Thursday.
Our planet is gearing up for its largest magnetic storm in years, due to arrive later today. A number of scientists have warned of possible technological catastrophe.
Back now to our top story, a terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures dropping dead in huge numbers for what seems like no reason.
Just when you thought there couldn't be more change going on in the world, it turns out magnetic north is moving. Aviators do this. It's always moved, but not like this. In fact, it's on the move about 40 miles a year now along the polar cap toward Russia.
But it is all a sign of the apocalypse.
Jesus will return, or what he'll look like. He's already here. Give it up for the reincarnation of Jesus Christ himself. So he says, Jose Luis, that Jesus already.
What? And Jesus Christ help the second coming of Christ.
There's so much more I could say on this show, but what I want to talk about tonight really applies to a particular direction, and that is that almost every one of these catastrophes that you just got through seeing, and many more others that we could show, oddly enough, coincide with how these nations have been treating the nation of Israel. Now, before that sounds really far out, I want to give you a little background about this from the Old Testament book of Zechariah. I want you to look at with me for a moment here in chapter 12, verse 2. A familiar passage to any of you that have probably been in this church for long. And that is the statement, God speaking, "Behold, I make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem." This is a prophetic statement that the Lord is saying that would happen in the last days. Amen. And as a result of this attack, this besieging against Jerusalem and Judah, the Lord would make this a shaking in their hands. He goes on to say, "And in that day will I make Jerusalem," listen to this illustration, "a burdensome stone for" how many people? How many? All people. Now, a burdensome stone, the best way to describe that is a stone that's so heavy, it's such a burden to carry it. Maybe you've, I've noticed a lot of rocks and stones around here. Maybe you're trying to move one out of your yard or move it into your yard, and you can pick it up, but it's so heavy you can only take a few steps, and then you got to drop it because it's the burden of it's so heavy. And God says, "I'm going to make Jerusalem like that. Everyone," now listen to this, "all that burden themselves with it shall be" what? What does that say there? Cut in pieces. And then he says something very important. He says, "This is true, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it." In other words, this little tiny speck on the planet is going to cause a shaking and a burden that people cannot carry, and everyone in the world, if they try to come against it, they're going to find out they're the one that's going to be cut into pieces.